Are you considering homeschooling your child in New York State? Either because you've always wanted to or because of COVID-19? Are you reluctant because it seems confusing and complicated? This video will attempt to answer some of the basic questions to get you started on this journey. The rules that govern homeschooling in New York State are written in Part 100 of the Regulations of the Commissioner of Education. You can find them online by going to the New York State Education Department website at www.nysed.gov. Once on the website, you can go to the Standards and Curriculum tab, go down to the Curriculum and Instruction choice. Once on that page, as you scroll down, you will see under the Regulations and Guidance Resources, Part 100. Part 100 describes the education requirements for school-age children. It includes everything from general school requirements to distinguished educator programs, diploma requirements, and lots of other choices. We will be focusing on Section 100.10, Home Education. Your homeschooling journey in New York State must begin with what is called the Notice of Intention to Instruct at Home, often called the Letter of Intent or LOI for short. If your child is of compulsory age, which means that they will be at least 6 years old before December 1st, and you will be homeschooling, you must notify the superintendent of your school district of your decision. Here is a sample of a letter of intent from the website a2zhomeschooling.com. This sample has all the pertinent information, but be sure to address it to your superintendent in your school district. The LOI must be submitted by July 1st, which is the beginning of the school year. However, you can decide to homeschool at any point during the year, but if you do, you must submit the letter of intent within 14 days of making that decision to your district. The same applies if you switch school districts in the middle of the year. You have 14 days to notify the new school district of your intent to homeschool. What strikes fear in the hearts of prospective New York homeschoolers is the Individualized Home Instruction Plan, or IHIP. This is not as difficult as it may appear from all the jargon. First thing is first. Within 10 business days of the school district receiving your letter of intent, they will send you a copy of the Part 100 regulations as well as a form to fill out for the IHIP. You do not need to use that form. I repeat, you do not have to use that form. The forms the school district will send you usually ask for way more information than what you are required to provide. Those forms can make the IHIP seem daunting and a lot of work. However, whether you choose to use the form sent by the district or make your own to use, there are many templates available online. You must submit a completed IHIP to the school district within 4 weeks. 10 business days after they have received the IHIP, they should send you a notice that either your IHIP has been accepted or what other information you must provide. If your district finds your IHIP to be non-compliant, you will have 15 days to revise and resubmit. If the superintendent finds the revised IHIP still to be insufficient, they will notify you of the next school board meeting, and where you can present your proof that you are in compliance with the Part 100 regulations. After that meeting, parents will have 30 days if they wish to appeal the decision. If after this your IHIP is still found to be non-compliant, or if you do not follow up through the appeal process, you must immediately provide instruction for the child or the children at a public school or another place that is in compliance with the law. If you send your child to the public school, nothing else will be needed. If you send your child to another program besides public schools, including private schools, then you must send a notice to the superintendent of your school district telling them of your decision. But most likely, you will never have to go through these steps because it is very simple to write up an IHIP that is compliant. Your IHIP must include the following: the child's name, age, and grade level, a list of the syllabi or the curriculums or textbooks or how you plan to instruct each of the required subjects, the dates that you'll be submitting your quarterly reports, more on the quarterly reports later, the names of those who will be providing instruction, which could be you or a tutor or another parent or guardian, an acknowledgement that says that your child will receive the full amount of hours and days of instructions that they need. Additionally, I would like to say that you should include a statement that says that the materials listed are some of the materials that will be used and that more may be added and some might be omitted as you find useful. It is often recommended that instead of listing the individual curriculums that you will be using for each subject, that you instead list what the child is set to learn for that year in that particular subject. If you make a list instead of a curriculum, you have the flexibility to change your mind later. If you choose a curriculum and then decide you don't want to use it, you must submit additional paperwork stating why that curriculum has been changed and to what. If your IHIP instead focuses on what the child will learn in the year, and you state that you may use some of the curriculums, then it will allow for more flexibility. The Part 100 also has a list of the required courses. This section has all the different courses that must be taught during the different school years. It has them listed from grades 1 through 6, for grades 7 and 8, and then from grades 9 to 12. 1 through 6 just has a list. 7 and 8 requires an amount of time or units for each subject. A unit is meant to be 6,480 minutes or 108 hours. For 7 and 8, these are to be divided between the 2 years, and from grades 9 to 12, these are to be divided for those 4 years. Additionally, it has some courses that need to be taught at some point during the child's learning, but not in a specific year, like patriotism or education regarding drugs and alcohol, highway safety, etc. Up next is attendance. It might sound silly, but attendance is an important part of the homeschool regulations. All students are required to have 180 days of instruction each year, with 900 hours of instructions for grades 1 through 6 and 990 hours of instructions for grades 7 to 12 each year. Parents are required to take a record of attendance, and although you do not have to submit them with your quarterlies, you have to produce this record if they ask you for them. G of the Section 100 requirement is the quarterly reports. The quarterly reports have to be submitted by the dates listed on your IHIP, so it is important that you carefully consider those dates before submitting the IHIP. Each child that you are homeschooling needs their own separate quarterly report. The reports must have how many hours were completed during that quarter, what from each subject was covered, with a grade or an assessment of how the child is doing, and at least 80% of what you set out to cover that quarter must be covered, and if it wasn't, you must write an explanation as to why. This is a very simple sample of a quarterly report from the Homeschooling New York City blogspot. Your district might require some more details. At the end of the school year, along with your quarterly report, you must also send an annual assessment of the student for this year. This can be either a commercially available test or a narrative. The narrative is considered the alternative method, and it is allowed for grades 1 through 3. Here is a list of the people who would be considered qualified to give that narrative. The wording is a bit confusing, but parents are allowed to write the narrative. They would be listed under the or other persons. The narrative should say the academic progress that was made by the student and what they might need to work on, and whether they have fulfilled the requirements for that grade. If the child has not made adequate progress, then the homeschool may be placed on probation. For grades 4 through 8, a narrative is allowed every other year. The other years, a commercially available test must be given. Where the test is administered needs to be approved by the superintendent, but at home is an option. If the score is deemed inadequate by the school district, the homeschool might be placed on probation. If you disagree with the decision from the district, you are able to appeal it, and it will go through the same process as appealing a IHIP. If the school district disputes the child's annual assessment, or the score of the commercial test isn't considered sufficient, the homeschool program can be placed in probation for up to 2 years. During this time, the parent or guardian must submit a plan on how they will get the child's grade to improve. If at any point during the 2 years the child makes up the deficit, then it can be taken off probation. If within the 2 years the child does not meet the required marks, then the superintendent and the Board of Education can deem the homeschooling program non-compliant. While under probation, the superintendent can require 1 or more home visits. You will be given 3 days notice, and the home visit might be from the superintendent themselves, a deputy, or any member of the home instruction peer review panel. This visit will determine how the parent or guardian can remediate the areas that are being deemed non-compliant. This concludes the overview of the Part 100 rules and regulations that oversee homeschooling in New York State. If you have further questions, you can go to www.p12.nysed.gov/sss/home instruction, and here you will find any of the announcements and also a question and answers page. Question and answer page has lots of the most frequently thought of questions, like are the parents required to meet with a school official, and questions about the children taking part in sports or music at the school, whether they can use the library, etc. So if you have any further questions, please contact me at dreevy@uncg.edu. I hope you enjoy this and that you found it informative.